Before we go into the parable of the Good Samaritan, we read earlier, as we believe the Bible to be divinely inspired, of the mission of the 70. If you go a little bit up a group, just a little bit forward, you'll see that Jesus disperses a group of 70 people. And he says to these people, he says, go out. I'm giving you this power. I'm giving you the ability to do everything. Go out there and do miracles. Do what you got to do. And do it in my name. So in Luke 10, verse 19, we read, as what he says, see, I have given you authority to tread on snakes and scorpions, over all the power of the enemy, and nothing will hurt you. And this is a very potent message here. He says, I'm giving you all authority. Jesus didn't say, I'm giving you some authority, and I'm going to keep some to myself. He says, I'm giving you all of it. And then he didn't say, I'm going to give you authority to do all these miracles, but some things are going to happen, bad things are going to happen, and you're going to fall, and you're going to get hurt, and you're going to die. What does he say? He says, you're going to be able to tread on snakes and on scorpions, which, these are the two insects, these are two animals that people feared most at that time. So, understanding yourself as a 911 operator, you have the ability to tread on snakes and scorpions. So then we go into the parable of the Good Samaritan, and we're focusing on the three men. And these three men come across this half-dead man who is traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. And as it mentions here, this is not a good path to go. John Wesley would mention this as the bloody way, or the bloody path, because it was 17 miles long from Jerusalem to Jericho. Which, I don't know about you, but 17 miles, that's a long walk, right? It reminded me of when I got married at Zion National Park. And my wife and I, we were climbing up the mountain. And here in Florida, we don't have to worry about elevation, right? Because it's pretty much like zero. So, you see, this path from Jerusalem to Jericho, not only is it 17 miles, it descends 3,300 feet. Okay? So try to understand that. So going back to my story, my wife and I were climbing up this mountain. Well, we're already married. And I'm begging God, kill me, take me now. Because I can't climb up this mountain anymore. And I told my wife, I said, we do have life insurance, right? But in order to understand this whole idea is that this was a treacherous path. Not a lot of people wanted to go through it, but you had to. It was the only way to go through there. And also bear in mind that this path had little pockets and little tunnels that people can hide in. And I don't know about you, but good people don't hide in those pockets. Bad people hide in those pockets. And what they would do is they would wait until somebody was coming by themselves, and then what they would do, they would jump on him, beat him, take anything he got. Because chances are when you traveled, you took, everything you had with you. There wasn't FedEx or anything like that. So you have to be able to walk through this passage of 17 miles, 3,300 feet, and hopefully you will make it to the other side in one piece. Well, this parable, we read of this man who did it. He was beaten down. He was half dead, as it mentions. He was not doing very well because of these bandits that were hanging out there. And you may say, well, that's rough. I feel bad for bad things happening to good people, right? Well, Jesus mentions here, with him and his attitude of breaking boundaries, he mentions the story to this person who asked him, and it mentions in the reading, it says teacher, you could say lawyer, you could say religious scholar. The translations vary according, but all we need to understand is that this person, who's very learned, very knowledgeable of scriptures, was trying to trick Jesus. He was trying to discredit what Jesus was saying. And remember, as I mentioned in the earlier service, that teacher, that lawyer will be equivalent maybe to an elder in United Methodist Church like Tom. So. But anyways, going back to the heart of the matter is that this person was trying to find a way to convince Jesus that, and the people around him who were Jews listening, that Jesus didn't know what he was talking about. That Jesus had no idea what the scriptures were all about. Jesus was just some guy who came from Nazareth. He dealt with wood. What can he know about the scriptures? What can he know about all this? So then Jesus tells this parable of the three men. And so we get to the first man, who is a priest. And so when you come to a priest, how do you treat a priest? You address him, priest, reverend, pastor, whatever his holiness, which I expect you all to call me his holiness after this. But you treat them with respect because you hold them in high esteem, in high accord. In the order of the United Methodist Church, they're called to set apart. And so we expect them to live out their lives in ways that we can't, or ways that we fail, right? Well, in this story, what happens to this priest? He fails. And he fails miserably. Because he sees this half-beaten man, this half-dead man. And what does he do? Oh man, there's blood. I need to step away. Blood. Yeah. And that goes with the reading from Leviticus. If you understand Levitical law, is that if it comes from Leviticus, Leviticus 21, 1 through 2, it says, the Lord spoke to Moses and said, speak to the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say to them, no one shall defy himself for a dead person among his relatives, except for his nearest kin, mother, father, son, daughter, or brother. So this priest says, well, that's not my mother, son, daughter, brother, so I guess I got to walk away. So he passes by. So he fails, right? Miserably. Which we refer to him as a holy man, a man who answers the calls of God, right? Second person we get to, a Levite. And as you know, Levites in the Old Testament come from the priestly tribe. They're the ones who we even hold even higher esteem because they're the ones who were able to handle the Ark of the Covenant. They were the ones who were the priests at the synagogue. All these wonderful things were attributed to the Levites. But what happens to this Levite man? Sees the dead body, the half-dead body, walks away. Another guy who fails miserably. But then we get to the third person, a Samaritan. Now, not many of you may know, a Samaritan will be like today. How many Gator fans do we have in here? All right, you can all leave. Thank you. I'm sorry, I went to Florida State. I can't help it. But going along, we forgive you, right? Because Christ forgives, we forgive you. But that's right, because we're all sharing the Holy Communion after this, so we have to forgive them. But going along with the whole story here is that Samaritans were not liked by the Jews, and that would be me saying it lightly. They were hated. The Jews hated them, okay? So it would be like similar to that FSU UF hate, I guess. But it would be even deeper than that. It was absolute disgust towards the Samaritans. They were like, I would rather be dead than be a Samaritan, ever. But guess what? Jesus is telling this parable to Jews. Jesus is telling this story to Jews. And they were expecting this third person to be another Jew. They're going to say, oh, the priest didn't do a good job, the Levite didn't do a good job, but maybe someone from the tribe of Judah will do it. Maybe another good Jew will answer and help this man who needs help. But Jesus turns it around and he says, no, I'm going to mention a Samaritan. And not only did the Samaritan that he mentions here be able to bandage and help this man, for he was moved by pity, but he took him in and spent money on him. He said, I will be able to help you in any way I can. And that makes me wonder, how many of us today say, I'm a Christian, I commit myself to God, I commit myself to the church. But then when times are rough or when you get busy in life, say, I just can't do it right now. Or if you look at a role of a 911 operator, what do? They answer calls, right? Say, hey, 911, what do you need? Well, you see, as Christians, that is our job too. When we see someone calling out to us, are we not supposed to say, hey, what do you need? Where can I help you? Where can I be able to fill this need that you have? Here at our church, we're taking pride last month in focusing on the children, which are the future of the church, that many of us tend to forget. That after we are long gone, If there aren't children in church, guess what? There is no church if we don't pass it on. So we see that need there, and we're saying, God, we know that as Christians, we are supposed to answer the call and be able to reach out to these people who need it. And now going back to this call and answer. How many people here know the call of Moses? I hope there's only 2 hands here. Tom and I can't be the only ones who know about the call of Moses. But in the book of Exodus, you read the call of Moses, and what does Moses say to God when God calls him and says, you're going to deliver my people? He says, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I'm not gifted. I'm not able to do it. And what does God say? I'm going to fill that need. I'm going to help you answer that call. So whatever is in your heart, God is saying, I'll help you. And I'm here to say there are a lot of Christians out there who don't know that. But they commit themselves to God and commit themselves to this church, but sometimes they feel alone. Sometimes they don't understand that we're all in this together. That if we're not all in, then you shouldn't be in at all. I remember growing up in the Roman Catholic Church, and Monsignor used to always, he was a very fragile old man. And he had a finger like Tom's, except that he didn't have a bandage on it. And he would always say to us in the church, he would always say, either you commit yourself 100% to God and His gospel, or don't even bother committing at all. Don't even bother committing at all. And that's hard to hear. That's very, very hard for us to hear. Because we like to come up with excuses. We like to tell God, not like that. Looking at another story, my favorite, 1 Samuel, story of King David. Him being anointed by Samuel to be the king of Israel, while there was still a king, by the way. And what does he do? He says, I will do it. I will answer. I will do whatever God asks me to do. Isn't that the type of faith we should have? Isn't that what we should be saying to God when He calls us? And when we see someone who's hurting, shouldn't we say, I will help you. I will do whatever it takes. Or if we read back, look what happens. God says, I give you all authority. God says, I will help you. Whatever I put in your heart, I will help you seek it. I will help you make it happen. In this parable, we also learn something else that many people tend to forget. And that is the half-dead man. Have you noticed that in this parable we read of a priest, a Levite, a Samaritan, Jesus is talking to a religious scholar, a lawyer, teacher, whatever you want to call him. But he never tells us who this man is. Have you noticed that? Jesus didn't say, oh, the half-dead man who's a Jew. Or the half-dead man who's a Samaritan. See, the Jews, they wanted to hear that. Because they wanted to hear new ways of making themselves feel good. I'm here to tell you, God sometimes is not about feeling good. It's about doing what's right. Or doing what God has placed in your heart. What God says, I will help you answer that call. And if you look at the translation, in Greek, for the translation goes as a certain man. It didn't say any classification whatsoever. A certain man. So now that we've understood that, he also mentioned a neighbor. Now, I don't know about you, but my neighbor, he tends to hang out in the garage and drink. And hang out watching football on TV. That's what my neighbor does. I don't know what your neighbor does. Or maybe you are that neighbor who likes to just hang out in the garage. I don't know. But we always think of a neighbor as someone who lives right next door to us, right? Or as we sing the Lord's Prayer, forgive those who trespass against us, neighbors. But I want you to look at it as John Wesley put it up. And one of my favorite sermons that John Wesley said, it's called The Almost Christian. He mentions every man and woman in the world. Every just those that you pick and choose, that you choose to help. Everyone. And that's, again, something we struggle with. I struggle with that just as much. But the translation goes to neighbor is one who is near. So if you understand it as one who is near, who is your neighbor? All of us. All of us. We are all each other's neighbors. And if we believe in the gospel and in the Bible, we're all related because we all came out of the neighbor. We all came from the same. So if we're here and we're answering the call and we're saying, I know who my neighbor is, now what? Well, it's easy. You do whatever they need. If you know someone's struggling financially, you have the means. Help them. If you know someone is struggling emotionally or psychologically, help them. Help them seek help. If you know someone's suffering from depression, which, by the way, that's very big in the church, people suffering from depression or loneliness, offer them company. Be there. Answer the call. Say, God, you can use me as an operator because I am not only open, I'm willing. But the hardest part is we like to say, I'm willing, but then we stop. When God takes us to unfamiliar territory, we stop. Because we say, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know, God, if I'm right for the job. I don't know if I can do this right. But if we look back, what does God say? I keep you on authority. I'm always there with you. So, I want us to be able to look at your life, or at a person's life, as this bouquet of flowers. Now, I kept saying roses in the first service. I know it's not a rose. Where's Richard? Richard told me this is not a rose. I know it's not a rose. But look at your life as this bouquet of flowers. And as things happen in your life, you are never really prepared for, really. Some of us, we have experienced those that we love who have died. Right? We have experienced those that have betrayed us. We have experienced those who don't love us, and we know we love them. But you see, as the bouquet is trimmed back, the essence is still there. The essence is always been there. You see, our job as the operator is to see this happen and to walk up to this person's life and say, I noticed that this fell. I noticed that you're going through this pain. How about I help you with it? How about I put this here next to my heart because you're not alone. Because we can make this together as a church, as one body of Christ. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.